NSCHSGAA. Now, the semifinals, our matchups are St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist and Kellenberg versus St. Mary's. Now, here are the players. Ready to bowl. And the first bowl for St. Anthony's is knocks down a few pins. It appears to be a 7, and that's going to get us started. And 1 pin left for the first St. John the Baptist bowler. And all the way on the right for St. John the Baptist, a strike will get them started. That strike came from Valentina Vera.
Great form overall. You can see the confidence, especially after the strike happened. You can see how that gave her even more confidence and ready to compete.
Well said, Justin. Now, all the way over on lane A, we have St. Anthony's with a total of 9, and St. John the Baptist they are not done with, oh no, pardon me, St. Anthony's B is not done with their first frame. While over here for St. John the Baptist, we have a second bowl from a St. Anthony's player, and that is 1 pin left, a total of a 9, and that was from Melissa Hannon on the B lane.
And
now the bowl that was Margaret Badger, referred to as Maggie, the junior from Massapequa, with an 8.
Man, that throw from Melissa Hannon, that must hurt. She couldn't get the spare, but of course.
And she will miss it wide left of the pin, knock down 9, and the St. Anthony's bowl that will knock down the 10 pin. For St. Anthony's, that last bowl was from Gianna Diagino, the junior from Huntington Station. The bowl from Mia Santiago leaves 2 pins up, it's an 8. She still has a second bowl left, as over here on St. Anthony's. And the bowl leaves 1 pin standing, and that is the 10. That bowl is from Tessa Mullen, the sophomore from Seaford. Wide left on the B lane for Kellenberg. Currently at St. Anthony, St. John the Baptist. Lane A, St. Anthony leads 64-62. And in lane B, St. Anthony's leads again 62-54.
Overall, close games between the St. Anthony's Friars and the St. John the Baptist Cougars. Of course, that may change in the future, but both teams playing very well to start it out.
Walking to her lane right now is Ruth Mikako, the senior from Elmont, getting ready for another bowl. 3 pins left to go for her to get the spare. Good speed past the arrows, but it is staying right. It hangs right, does not get the spin she was hoping for. And she will end with a 7 on that frame. And that will leave a 119, I believe. Pardon me. That is a 99 for St. Mary's. They, however, hanging behind. Pardon me, a 119. They're hanging behind Kellenberg's lane A, 135 to 119. And now here's the bowl from St. John the Baptist. And unfortunate turn of events right there will not be the result she was hoping for. That was Margaret Batcher, the junior from Massapequa. She leads it with a 6. 4 pins to knock down for the spare. Now the bowl from St. Anthony's. And that's going to be another spare. Ava Higbee, the senior from West Islip. Back-to-back spares. Gives St. Anthony's a commanding lead. And Margaret Batcher of the B lane for St. John the Baptist only knocks down 1. That's a 7 for her 3rd frame. Now looking at the A lane, prepared to bowl for St. John the Baptist is Samantha Siebert. Now Justin, we mentioned previously this game, it was her first year. Coach also mentioned her improvement. How do you think she's showing that currently in this game?
Of course, she's showing great improvement. Both teams having pretty close scoring-wise. And I think just as the game goes on, she's gonna get warm, per se. She's gonna get loose, and all this pressure is just gonna turn to fire for her wanting to compete.
Well said, Justin. Also, famous quote, pressure makes diamonds. We're seeing that here today. Now, as we were speaking, on the B lane, Tessa Mullen of St. Anthony's knocked down a strike. St. Anthony's still with a commanding lead. On the A lane, they have a 20-pin lead. They're leading 117 to 97. And currently on the B lane, 122 to 77. Preparing to bowl for St. John the Baptist, it's Valentina Vera. And bingo! The strike from Valentina Vera, hoping to help St. John the Baptist crawl back.
Wow, Valentina Vera, her approach was well played. She didn't cross the foul line, and her hook with the ball changing direction, that played to her strength. The transition, how the oil moves, changing how the ball hooks, that also was a key part. And just her technique overall was just amazing.
Well said, Justin. Now we have a pull on the A lane. 7 pins knocked down. That was, I believe, a good goal there. And currently we have scores. St. John the Baptist is crawling back in lane B. They have a 140 to 296 lead over St. Anthony's. I had a scoring issue earlier, pardon me, and St. John the Baptist only down 3 to St. Anthony's in the A lane.
St. John the Baptist, their B lane, playing exceptional. They're playing an exceptional game. St. Anthony's gonna have to pick it up and just pray that this hot streak for St. John the Baptist will fade away.
And an unfortunate bull, only it looked to be 3 pins knocked down for the St. Anthony's bowler, Ava Higby.
That's an unfortunate turn of events, Helen. That plays like that can destroy confidence. I just hope that it did not.
And as this bowl, we prepare to switch over to St. Mary's versus Kellenberg, as it is a miss for Ava Higby. Now looking at Kellenberg versus St. Mary's. St. Mary's, they've been hanging in there for only having 2 bowlers. As we will see a St. Mary's bowl and 1 pin left standing. 9 knocked down. And St. Mary's hoping to crawl back and defeat 7-1 Kellenberg.
While St. Mary's, they are, of course, lacking as many players as Kellenberg. That had to stop them. The two players, they're fighting back. They're going as hard as they can, and they're playing at the best of their abilities. And it's really showing on the scoreboard.
Well said, Justin. Now we're here to see a Kellenberg bowl. This is Chloe Horstman. Another bowl coming from her, and 2 pins left standing. And 8 on that frame. Now we're gonna see a bowl here from St. Mary's Ruth Makako. And 7 pins knocked down. That will be her first bowl. She has 3 left to go for the spare. And that's a solid bowl coming in there from the Kellenberg bowler. That was Carrie Callahan. Earlier in the game, before the game, pardon me, Firebirds 15-year head coach Alyssa Frazina mentioned that Carrie Callahan was a key player. Justin, what else does she know?
Yeah, she mentioned how she was a key player. Of course, in her 15 years, she mentioned how of all 3 of the years that Carrie Callahan has played, all 3 of the years, she's been in this exact same place, in this exact same moment, and that this is nothing new to her. And, of course, the competitiveness is there. The technique is there. I just hope that she can captivate at it in the end.
Well said, Justin. Now, we have another bowl coming up for Kellenberg. And that bowl will be from Alexandra Belong. And a 9. 1 pin left standing all the way in the back. 1 pin, Justin. One of the hardest to hit in bowling. You have to have great precision. How do you think these players have been showing that?
Great, you know. They practice this arguably every day. I remember when I used to go with my parents to go bowling. If there was 1 pin, I don't know about you, Kelly, but I wasn't getting it. But you can see from these players, they can get it. They can get it. Their technique is spotless, and they're just trying the best that they can. And if it's 10 out of 10, if you have 10 tries to hit that 1 pin, almost every one of these girls, if you gave them 10 tries, they would get at least 7. That's what I think.
All set, Justin. Now, the score for St. Mary's versus Kellenberg. Kellenberg currently has, I believe that is 219. Pardon me, that looks to be 229. And it just went up, it's 246. 146, pardon me, to the St. Mary's. That will be 167. Very great game unfolding, looking to eventually come down to the wire here on the A lane. As we'll see, Makako Bull, not her best, however, still putting up a wonderful performance. As we'll see, once again, one pin left standing for the Firebirds.
That one pin, that's going to be a very hard pin to get, because if you're not precise enough, the bowling ball, it could fall right into the gutter and completely miss the pin. Or go through the middle. There's just a number of factors that can contribute to the one pin.
Now, preparing to see a bowl on the A lane. Both competitors eyeing up where they'll need to throw it as Makako's bowl. Getting some spin from right to left, and she'll knock them all down for the spare. And we'll see another spare from Kellenberg. Carrie Callahan, the senior from Merrick, one of the team's captains who has been here before and has the highest average of points on the team.
And that's the reason she's a captain. She's just so well, she plays her part so well. And you can see it in this game. She's playing the best of her abilities, and she's getting it. She's getting good attempts, most of her percentage.
All right, we prepare to switch to St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist. St. John the Baptist currently, I believe they trail St. Anthony's. No, they have a commanding lead over St. Anthony's. 223 to 149. Here on the B lane, that is. 233. As now bowling for St. John the Baptist is Margaret Maggie Batcher, the junior from Massapequa. There's the bowl. Spinning left from the arrows, and 7 knocked down for Maggie Batcher.
You could see for St. John the Baptist, a big reason on them being up, at least on the B lane, is due to all the strikes that they're getting. They're captivating on it, and they're getting confidence from this.
Over on the A lane, St. John the Baptist leads 208 to 167. Leading on both lanes, Justin, is key to taking each of their game ones to hopefully take a 2-0 game point lead.
Exactly right, Kellen. Of course, that's a closer game than on the B lane, but the A lane, they're still playing extremely well for both teams.
Now Tessa Mullins' bowl only knocks down a few pins, almost got the 10 pin. Little wiggle, and then the pin stayed up. As we have a bowl from St. John the Baptist, the perfect spin for the strike. Jillian Bancroft, the senior.
And that's the reason that she's one of the captains. She's very well at what she does, and she's demonstrating it right now.
And now Mullins' second bowl, only 2 knocked down there. Unfortunate bowl for Tessa Mullen. She'll finish with a 7 on the frame. Oh wait, pardon me, I seem to have mixed up the scores. We have some confusing scoring here. As we prepare to see, we have Melissa Hannon, the junior from Deer Park for St. Anthony's, and Valentina Vera with her bowl. 2 left in the back right corner. An 8 on the bowl. And I seem to have mixed up the scores. St. Anthony's, in fact, is winning 240 to 176 on the B lane. Meanwhile, over on the A lane, we have another St. Anthony's lead, 217 to 194. Two games winning for St. Anthony's, which as of now puts them in great position to win this match. As a solid bowl from Melissa Hannon leaves 3 pins left, the 4, 7, and 10 pins.
Melissa Hannon, the junior from Deer Park, showing great form and technique. Overall, having a good performance this game.
Now here comes the St. Anthony's Bowl from Melissa Hannon. 4, 7, and 10. Aiming, and the spin, not quite enough. It stays centered. And she makes the field goal motion as it goes through all 3 pins, finishing with a 7 on the frame.
That was a hard attempt. I give her props for trying her best, because there were 2 pins on the left side, and then there was only 1 pin on the right side, and that would have been very hard to hit all of them. So I'm glad that she attempted to at least.
Melissa Hannon has a total score on the day of 120, powering St. Anthony's to a lead on the B lane, 271 to 183. As we'll see the bowl from Maggie Batcher. 3 pins to go, 7 knocked down, hoping for the spare. On target, 1 pin left standing, a 9 on the frame.
We missed it on the St. Anthony side. Ava Higby just got a strike. That's her first strike of the game with 2 spares. St. Anthony's leading 271 to 185.
Now here comes the bowl. It's Tessa Mullen. Spin, and she knocks down 8 of them, but back to left. That is the 4 and the 7 pin. As the bowl from Jillian Bancroft ends up in the gutter.
St. Anthony's overall just making less mistakes. They're able to captivate while they're not getting as many strikes. With only a few. I know they're very hard to get, but overall, they're hitting multiple pins on every attempt. Every time on their first attempt, where we just saw a spare.
And we have the second bowl from Jillian Bancroft, and it looks to be about 6 knocked down. 6 will be her bowl for that frame. And with the first set of games coming to an end, nearing an end, pardon me, St. Anthony's on the B lane leads by 90 points, while over on the A lane, it's a score of 245 to 220, another St. Anthony's lead. Justin, how do you think that A lane will end up impacting them to hope for either one of these teams to hopefully take the win?
Of course, St. Anthony's leading overall. Both teams are playing very well. But, you know, the A lane, at least for St. John the Baptist, it's a close game. They're not giving up. And maybe, just maybe, the A lane can come back.
An A-lane comeback is exactly what this St. John the Baptist team needs, as we'll go over and look at Kellenberg versus St. Mary's. Now, looking over at Kellenberg, they are currently leading. It's a score of 286 to 369. Kellenberg with the commanding lead. Justin, how do you think that impacts St. Mary's, who's actively down by a great amount of points?
At least I hope. I hope that St. Mary's, at least, we have 2 more games after this, so they can always come back. But I hope she's still not letting this get to her head, and she's trying her best to still stay in the fight.
Well said, Ruth Makako, the A-lane bowler. Unfortunate turn of events. St. Mary's also only has 2 bowlers today. One, the A lane, Ruth Makako, as we mentioned, the senior from Elmont. And on the B lane, Zoe Padmore, the freshman from Hempstead.
Of course, St. Anthony's, again, with a record of 7-1, going against St. Mary's, who they beat twice, with the first game being 7-2, and their latest game, which was a few weeks ago, 9-0. Of course, again, St. Kellenberg, have a very powerful team with I believe 3 or 2 players going to states. Kellen, if you could fact check me on that.
Kellenberg has had some very good players. I am not quite sure if any of them are going to states, but with the way they've been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of their players are going to states.
Correction, my apologies. It was St. Anthony's who had 2 players going to states.
Now with the first frame ending in the B lane, Kellenberg a huge lead over St. Mary's as they enter the final frame. However, on the A lane, 2 frames left, another commanding lead for Kellenberg. It appears they will start early with a 2-0 lead on the day. Now, a 2-0 lead, if Kellenberg is able to hold on to that and win, they will play in the finals tomorrow. Same spot, Wantagh Lanes on TND.
Kellen, I just have one question. What do you know about the technique of throwing a bowling ball or rolling a bowling ball?
Now bowling, in its simplest form, you just kind of have to roll it. Now,
of course, at least the start. Their start, also called the approach, is one of the most important things about the sport of bowling. With most people being, their approach being 4 steps, they can be slow, they can be fast, they can be, I guess, walking at a normal pace. And it's really important that their approach is their approach, of course. That they're used to it, and of course practice makes perfect, you know that saying. But also their technique has to be precise if they want to get as many pins as possible.
Now we prepared for one of the final bowls of this round from Kellenberg bowler, and that will be good. I believe that was Alex Pila with her final bowl on the day. I believe actually she has 1 left to go. She will finish with a final score of 113. And a wonderful shot from Kellenberg as they're hoping to finish off this match, getting ready for their next match. And as we look at the score from the A lane, St. Mary's, they're on their last bowler, Ruth Makako. She has 98 on this first round. Current score 326 to 410. As this one out of reach. However, still 2 games left. And the final score from Lane B, Kellenberg will take the lead. They are leading 1-0 right now as they win 356 to 295.
Something I see, at least from both teams, both lanes, they're getting a lot of spares. While they're not strikes, they still count. They still count as points. And it's a big reason on why they won the first match.
Well said. Spares, obviously, more pressure than strikes. Strikes, you have 2 bowls. If you miss one, you don't get a strike, so what? With the spare, it's all about finishing the job. And that's what players on all 4 teams today have been doing. Now, 2 frames left each for both Lane A and Lane B for St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist. Now we have the bowl from Mullen. And not only picks off 1 pin, unfortunately for her, a 9, hoping for the spare, but with a commanding lead, you'll take what you get.
Tessa Mullen, the sophomore from Seaford. She's playing very well. While not a lot of her attempts, a lot of her attempts came out as spares in her early rounds, having 2 spares in a row followed by a strike. She sometimes leaves pins there, of course, like anyone does. And she's playing very well because, of course, as a team. And I don't blame her because most of the time she only has 1 pin left, Helen. And that's a very hard thing to do, very hard thing, hitting the last pin. Of course, like you said, the pressure of the second attempt, that really comes to you. And yeah.
Well said. One player who has been able to finish what they started is Melissa Hannon, the junior from Deer Park for the St. Anthony's Friars. From frames 2 through 6, she went spare, strike, spare, strike, strike, 5 consecutive times, knocking down all 10 pins. And that has helped St. Anthony's lead 330 to 238.
While it's been so far in the B lane, overall dominance, St. John the Baptist, they're still trying their hardest. They're not giving up, which is what I'm proud to see, because of course there are still 2 more games after this.
Well said, Justin. With those 2 games left, you lose 1 game, so what? You still got 2 more to win. And St. John the Baptist are ready for those 2 games.
The same thing to say about St. Mary's. While while at least the B lane finished, the B lane, they lost. We still have 2 more games. They're trying the best of their abilities, and of course, confidence. Confidence is key. And it seems like every player here has confidence, but also the mentality. Who wants it more? Who wants to hit more pins? Who wants to win? Of course, hopefully tomorrow, one of these teams, of course, will lift up the championship and have the most successful season you can have.
Well said, Justin. Now, one of our games still in reach for both teams is A-Lane for St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist. The score is currently 313 to 292. As we await for the next bowler. Now, with a commanding lead on the B lane, safe to say St. Anthony's will take that, as we will see an almost strike, 9 pins knocked down for Jillian Bancroft of St. John the Baptist.
Of course, while this is a closer game than the B lane, St. Anthony's, their whole team as a whole has just been dominating. You know, leading 313 to 292. In the B lane, 341 to 256. Both teams have been dominating, and that's not just one player. While that may help, there's all 3, and in this case 6 for both lanes. They're playing as a team. Their individual success correlates with the success of the team.
Well said, Justin. Now, as you were speaking, Amanda Kubelka, the junior from Deer Park, leaves 2 pins standing as St. John the Baptist is hoping to snatch that win right out of St. Anthony's hands. As preparing to bowl, we have Mia Santiago. She will knock 1 down. That's going to be a 9 for the frame. As she finishes her bowl, pardon me, it was Mia Santiago who had the first bowl. As next to bowl for St. Anthony's is Victoria Antoine. Her bowl set, good line, and knocks down the 10 pin, 1 pin left. As she is helping St. Anthony's power themselves to a win here. One frame left for each of the St. John the Baptist bowlers. The next bowl for St. Anthony's will be their last of the 9th frame. we are seeing some final touches added to the final score of St. John the Baptist, St. Anthony's on the B lane, which will be a St. Anthony's win.
Valentina Vera, the senior from Bayshore, knocked down 8 pins, leaving only 2 left, with St. Anthony's giving it a try, B lane.
And a good spin from Melissa Hannon of St. Anthony's B lane as the A lane prepares to enter their final frame. That's a 7. Pardon me, that looks to be a 7 for St. Anthony's bowler.
Melissa Hannon, the junior from Deer Park. She's going up for one more, trying to get the spare with only 1 pin left. Almost directly in the middle. Well, it's not the 10 pin, or the 1 pin.
And up to prepare to bowl is what appears to be Mariana Pickowitz, and her bowl knocks the pin into the right corner, takes down another, and 1 pin left standing. 2 pins left standing, pardon me, but being able to knock down that 10 pin, crucial in finishing off games.
Going back to St. Anthony's, Melissa Herron, the junior, started with her approach. Her approach was very well done. I'm impressed. That wasn't an easy throw.
As we'll see the final bowl from St. Anthony's Melissa Hannon's first round as it ends up in the gutter. And from the looks of it, St. Anthony's might hold on to this lead. They lead 352 to 309, exiting the 9th frame and finishing off the 10th. So I believe that will do it for their A frame, which now looks to be a clear St. Anthony's win.
St. Anthony's, both teams, while in the A lane, both teams at first, it was a close matchup. St. Anthony's leading mostly by 20, 30 the entire game, but they picked it up during the second game. Now they're up by almost 50. They're up by 46 points to be exact, and while there's still 2 more games, I believe the first game is done in St. Anthony's so far.
The first game, a crucial one to win. St. Anthony's will finish off their A frame. Currently 361 to 318, but they will obtain victory, giving them a 2-0 lead over St. John the Baptist as we go to check on the B lane, the second lane, with a final score of 367 to 280. Almost final score, pardon me. However, still a St. Anthony's win and a 2-0 lead for the Friars.
Absolutely right, Kellen. The Friars, they just been playing outstanding, while St. John's is playing well. St. Anthony's been playing great, and it just seems like they want it more, and they just have the mentality.
Yeah, mentality, a huge thing. They were able to power themselves to victory in the first 2 games, and the first game on each lane, pardon me. That will give St. Anthony's a 2-0 lead. 3 more points needed to win out of 9, as over on the right as we finish up, Kellenberg and St. Mary's have begun their second game. Now that will be the final for Lane B, 385-288 in favor of the St. Anthony's Friars.
Helen, real quick, I want to give props to every single player out here. They all have the ability to knock down pins. Of course, we see that. That's why they're here. But but the mentality is still a leading factor, confidence, and just commitment to this win. Sorry.
As we begin, we see Ruth Makako, pardon me, of St. Mary's with a solid first frame, 9 pins knocked down, and that will get the Gales started, hoping to bounce back after a rough first game. Justin, how do you think they'll do that?
I feel like at least the Gales, of course, only one person for each lane compared to Kellenberg's three-person lane. I feel like, of course, they know they're outnumbered. They know they're lacking their teammates. I feel like at least for them as a whole, Ruth Makako, Zoe Padmore, those two they want to play to the best of their ability and just show others that, hey, I can play too. I may not have the size of your team, but I'm just as good as you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kellenberg has just been dominant, especially in that first game, taking a commanding lead and commanding win. They won each of their games 356 to 295 in one and 443 to 326 in another.
St. Anthony's, of course, absolute dominating. At least from the first game, you could see tomorrow in the championship game, it will be St. Anthony's versus Kellenberg. But of course, there's 2 more games, and one team, and both teams actually can bounce back.
And now here's the ball from Chloe Horstman on a good line, and 1 pin left standing. A solid ball from Chloe Horstman.
Her approach is very well. Her, I guess you could say, flick after she releases the ball. And she's played before. It's not her first time playing. She is, I believe, a senior from Lindenhurst. It's her 4th year, I believe. And she's been here 3 other times. So, of course, again, she's confident. She knows what she's doing, and she just showed it by getting a spare.
Chloe Horstman, also one of the team's captains. All four years of her being at Kellenberg, she's played bowling, and she's showing it with a wonderful performance today. As the bowl from Makako leaves 3 pins left, 7 knocked down, and a second bowl ready to go shortly. Now up to bowl for Kellenberg's A-lane, Carrie Callahan. Here she goes. She's got some spin on the ball, and a banger strike for Carrie Callahan, the senior, one of the team's captains, helping the team by putting them on her back with a strike.
Carrie Callahan, coach for Cinna, mentioned how she's not only a captain, but one of the team's key players. And that, of course, while they had a dominating season, during practice, they would still go as hard as they can because they want to get better. And that's what I love about every single one of these players here. They want to get better, and they want to improve on their original skills.
And we'll have a bowl here from Kellenberg. And another strike, back-to-back strikes for the Firebirds. That strike helps Kellenberg. Now the strikes also helped push them over in game 1 to get the lead. That strike there was from, I believe, Alex Pelock, the senior from Plain Edge. Over on the left, the cheering you hear is from the beginning of game 2 of St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist. Scoring so far, leading the Firebirds' way. They lead 90-83, close as of now. But as you've seen with their previous game, Justin, this can develop hugely in favor of either team.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Kellen. We saw the same thing in the first game, but then Kellenberg, the Firebirds, they were able to, I guess in a way, get warmed up and continue firing all the firepower that they have, giving it everything they got.
Now with that said, on the B lane, St. Mary's has a lead, 91-80. Now, having a lead this early, maybe towards the end of the game, might not mean much, but to bounce back after such a unfortunate loss, a blowout in favor of Kellenberg, that's what you love to see here in the bowling championships.
I believe at least that this will be able to give her confidence and have her keep going and just keep getting better and improving as the game goes on.
Carrie Callahan going from left to right will finish off with 2 pins for a spare. Carrie Callahan keeping it rolling to begin game 2. Now here comes the bull. It is Alex Pelock, as I mentioned, senior from Plain Edge. Pelock sets the bull straight ahead, hoping for the strike. Once again, another strike from Alex Pelock, pushing Kellenberg to a commanding lead to begin game 2. Kellenberg with the lead, 132-125. That strike crucial in holding on and hopefully winning game 2.
That was just honestly a very great attempt. She had it on her first try. You could see the confidence on her face as she was approaching it. And of course, again, it's confidence. You know, Kellen, she's a senior from Plainage, and yeah, she's a very good player all around it. Her approach is nice, her technique all around, and yeah.
Now with another strike scored by Chloe Horseman, that makes it 5 consecutive times where Kellenberg has knocked down all 10 pins.
Kellenberg, we saw this in the first game. We're starting to see it in the second. They're a very good team. Of course, having the regular season being 7-1, they're playing as best as they can, and it's shown. Both games, they're leading, both lanes, I believe, and you can just see it.
Now as we look over to the score of lane B, it still remains a St. Mary's lead. However, Kellenberg has been cutting that lead down one by one, staying in it. Now, ready for another bowl. This is Carrie Callahan.
Carrie Callahan. A little terminology here, Kellen, but what Carrie Callahan just did, knocking down 9 pins, leaving only 1, that's called a tap. It's a solid hit that leaves only 1 pin, and that's what she just did.
Well said, Justin. Now, open for a turkey here is Alexandra Pelock, the senior from Plain Edge. Back-to-back strike. Can she get a third? Prepares for the throw. Taking a breath.
She makes this, she gets what's called a turkey, that being 3 consecutive strikes.
And here she goes. Another good line. And oh no, 1 pin away from a turkey. 9 knocked down by Alex Pelock. And that will And with that, we now switch over to St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist. Both of their lanes are currently in frame 2. St. John the Baptist with 40, St. Anthony's with 49 in the B lane, and over in the A lane, it is 46-34, St. Anthony's lead, as here comes the bull from Ava Higbee. Online, it will be, and she'll take the spare.
St. Anthony's leading both lanes, but St. John the Baptist, the Cougars, they're not too far behind. And throughout this game, it seems at least the leads are less than 10, or at least for lane A being 11. But compared to the first game, St. John the Baptist, they're not that far back. They are playing with everything they have. They're playing as a team. And you can really see that right now.
Yeah, currently on the B lane, all of St. John the Baptist bowlers have knocked down more than 8 pins every time. However, they're still down by 19, as we will see 1 pin left standing from the St. John the Baptist bowler, which was, I believe, Jillian Bancroft.
Again, Kellen, that's called a tap. Little fun fact.
And here we go. 1 pin left standing once again. That was, I believe, Tessa Mullen.
St. Anthony's playing very well. And St. John's, the Baptist, down by 5.
And just like that, another spare for St. John the Baptist. Keeping them in this game, staying in this game is crucial, as at the end of the second frame, they're only down 4 to the Friars.
So right now, a very entertaining matchup on both lanes, lane A and lane B, for St. Anthony's, the Friars, versus the Cougars, St. John the Baptist. Each team, no team is leading by more than 6. Correction, 3. And St. John the Baptist, they just took the lead. Now they're up by 1.
As we'll see some nice spin and another pin left standing. Now, with 1 pin left standing several times today, the question is, who will knock that 1 pin down? And currently, the team that knocks that 1 pin down more has been able to, every time they get to 9 and they knock that pin down, they have been playing better.
At least that's on the left side, but if you go on the right side, where it's Kellenberg versus St. Mary's, if there's 1 pin left, it's always Kellenberg getting the last laugh.
Kellenberg currently checking over at that game. Lead St. Mary's 279 to 195. As the tap of the pin is all that was needed. And that will be a spare for the St. Anthony's bowler. That turned to be Melissa Cannon, the junior from Deer Park.
Of course, it was a very, very good two tries. Of course, she got the spare, I believe. And yeah, you can just see this from the whole team. Their confidence is starting to build up every time down the floor. St. John the Baptist is up right now by about, correction, St. Anthony's is up.
St. Anthony's up 13, 92-79 on the B lane. However, if you take a look over at the A lane, it's a St. John the Baptist lead, 79-77.
Believe it or not, Kellen, up to a few minutes ago, St. John the Baptist was actually up. They're up by 1. Now they're back down to 13, seeing much of what we saw in the first game. Or maybe that's just because St. Anthony's is just getting more and more confident every time.
as we will see the St. John the Baptist Bull, Jillian Bancroft, with a split as she leaves standing the 7, 10, and 6 pin. A 7. As now up to bowl for the Friars is Tessa Mullen. Mullen winds and releases right down the middle. 9 knocked down once again. I feel like a broken clock here, Justin. 1 pin left standing.
Yeah. While it's just so great that they're able to get 1 pin down each time, I bet they're still looking for those strikes. You know, Kellen, not as many strikes as the first game, only 1 for St. Anthony's. But the second game. But you saw in the first game, St. Anthony's to begin the match, to begin the first game, they were having multiple strikes in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, right now it seems to be either a little bit of a struggle for the Friars or a renaissance for St. John the Baptist. They are down 9 on the B lane and are winning by, I believe, 27 on the A lane.
Very well said, Kellen. Very well said. Of course, with Victoria Antoine going with her first try, knocking down a few pins. The senior from Central Islip, who Coach Volpe crowned as their star player, to say, even though it's a team sport. Their #1 overall star player. Quentin Volpe, in his first year for the Friars, having a record of 5-3 to start his first year.
Yeah, experience. Also, one thing to mention. Now, St. John the Baptist, they have 1 freshman on that team. That is Abigail Garrity from Shirley. St. Anthony's has no freshmen on the team. However, they have 1 sophomore, several juniors and seniors, and the first-year coach. While St. John the Baptist, Coach Lauren Haynes, she's in her 4th year.
Exactly. And both teams, they're playing exceptionally well. And St. Anthony's still up by about 16. But of course, their next set of players for both teams are starting to come out. And St. Anthony's not leading both games. St. John's in the A lane, at least, they're leading by 10.
Meanwhile, over in the B lane, it is a 118 to 108 lead in favor of the Friars. As 3 pins left to go, currently bowling for St. John the Baptist is Maggie Batcher.
For St. Anthony's, Ava Higby. She left only 2 pins left.
And here's the bowl. 2 knocked down. Pardon me, she only knocked down 6 in her original, so that's an 8 for the frame. Not what you're looking for while trying to bounce back from currently a 16-point deficit.
Well, of course, it's not what you're looking for. Of course, every time, every round, they're just looking for the best of what they can get. You know, it's not, while it's about the winning, I bet the coach just wants to see them flourish as much as they can. You know, the improvement. I can assure you, 3 years ago, them bowling was not the same as now. I bet they're a lot better and just a lot more skilled through all the practice, and hopefully that it may pay off.
Currently in lane A, it is a 29-point lead in favor of the Cougars. However, different story here on lane B, as it's a 131 to 119 lead in favor of the Friars. Currently towards the bottom of the 4th frame, and on the A lane in the middle of the 4th.
Jillian Bancroft on lane B, the senior from Bellport, just got a spare. That was a very well approach going up. Again, an approach is like your form, just approaching, walking up.
Now we'll go over and take a look at Kellenberg versus St. Mary's. On the A lane, Kellenberg has returned to their Game 1 form. They're up by nearly 100. They're currently up by a total of 91, but still another commanding lead. And over on the B lane, it is only a 10-point deficit for St. Mary's. B lane bowler for St. Mary's, Zoe Padmore. A rough first game, but she has clearly turned it around, keeping the Gales in this game, as we see a strike coming in from St. Mary's Ruth Macaco.
Of course, Ruth Macaco, this is her second strike, not consecutively, but almost every other, I guess, round, except for the round 1 of game 2, she's had a spare. You could see how well she's playing in the second game. But of course, that's not enough for this Kellenberg Firebirds team, who is still leading by almost 100 points. Now about 74 after that strike.
Yeah, Ruth Macaco, she's consistently done well today. Unfortunately, Kellenberg has just done the extra step. Absolutely commanding lead they currently possess. As with 1 pin left to go, Alex Pelock gets ready for her second bowl. Now, Pelock has been an extraordinary player so far. How do you think she's going to keep this going this game?
You know, Alex Pelock, the senior correction from Plainage, she's playing exceptional. She has, I believe, 2 strikes and 2 spares. She's playing as best as she can, and she's a big reason on why the Firebirds are up right now against the Gales.
She currently has 140 points in this second game. Pardon me, she has 146. Even better than I said. As next up to bowl for the Firebirds is Chloe Horseman. And the petering of the pins goes her way. 1 pin left for Chloe Horseman.
Chloe Horseman, of course, she has the most points out of the 3 players on her team. But you could see with all 3 of those players, they've been playing really well together. And I feel like their play styles, they merge together, and they're just feeding off each other's energy and each other's confidence. And that's a big reason why Kellenberg is as much as they are right now.
Horseman with 1 pin left. Throw just right. She'll leave that pin standing and finish that frame with a 9. As we're approaching the end of game 2 in Kellenberg St. Mary's. How has time flown this fast? St. Mary's currently trailing 321 to 422. On lane B, it is currently a 241 to 254 lead in favor of Kellenberg.
Both Zoe Padmore and Ruth Macaco, they've been playing exceptional. But that's still not enough for this Kellenberg Firebirds team, who are essentially shutting them out. They're trying as much as they can, but it's just not working. But I'm impressed to see, as years will go on, and their skills develop, that they improve on their weaknesses and make it their strengths.
As that 1 pin left for Carrie Callahan will be knocked down. That's another spare for the Firebirds. And that will almost finish their 9th frame. 1 bowl left, and that is from Ruth Macaco. Approaching the line, rolls it, and knocks it down right on the face of the pin. And that will be a spare for the Gales.
Ruth Macaco, the senior from Elmont, she's playing exceptional. Of course, with no other teammates on her team, she's really had to pick it up to stay decently close. With Kellenberg still being up by a pretty large margin coming into the last round, I just hope that she's still confident in her abilities to throw the ball.
And it seems that it will be another Kellenberg point that will put them at 3-0, as lane A is all but decided, while in lane B, we still have a close game here. 265-279. Currently holding on for the Gales is Zoe Padmore, the freshman from Hempstead.
Zoe Padmore, she's playing very well. While she's not as, I guess you could say, seasoned in, I guess, playoffs as her teammates, she's still a very good player, being a very well player and just making as many plays as she can.
Now we will see this bowl for the Firebirds. It's going to be wide right. And I believe it will now be St. Mary's turn to bowl. Pardon me, it is still in the Firebirds' turn. Currently up to bowl is Catherine Troy, the senior from Long Beach. To approach the bowl will be almost a strike. One pin left once again, Justin.
Yeah, Kellenberg, while they've been having a lot of spares, while they're not as much as strikes, spares are still crucial and are a big reason on why they're up by such a high margin.
Now we have Zoe Padmore, the lane B bowler for St. Mary's, and it will be on the outside. A few pins knocked down. Won't be enough to completely change the score, as it is a Kellenberg lead 304 to 271. Since we started keeping an eye on lane B, Kellenberg has been completely pulling ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But Zoe Padmore, even she has, unfortunately, no other players on her lane, but that hasn't stopped her. I feel like while she's not performing as high as the Kellenberg players, she's trying her best, and that's all what matters. Again, she has 3 more years, so while she's performing really, really well right now, imagine her when she's a senior. Imagine how good she's going to be. Imagine how well she's going to start playing.
Well said, Justin. Unfortunately, though, for the St. Mary's Gales, she is a freshman, and it is a huge lead for Kellenberg as they are pulling ahead here on lane B as we enter the final frame for lane B, favoring Kellenberg. If they truly hold on to that lead, that will be a commanding 4-0 lead in the overall score. And with one more lane win, clinches the Firebirds a spot in tomorrow's championship, Justin.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kellen. And I feel like the Firebirds are really starting to taste this victory in themselves. While they're still playing absolutely phenomenal, they are not letting anything stop them, and they're still confident with a spare just happening.
For those who don't know, the scoring for the CHSAA-Girls bowling goes like this. Every game won on each lane is 1 point per game each lane, which leads to a total of 6 points available from the 3 games. The next 3 out of the total of 9 come from the lane A average, the lane B average, and the total average. So, with that said, in order for St. Mary's to win without, if they win, they have to win both games, both lanes next game, and then have a higher average, which with the first 2 games being swept is very unlikely.
Of course, and this applies to tomorrow because right now we're seeing what teams are pulling away and what's not. But tomorrow in the finals, you know, the scoring-wise, just because one lane wins every game doesn't mean that they're still going to win, because you still have the other lane and, of course, the other attributes that gain points.
Now, in her final frame for St. Mary's, Ruth Makako has had back-to-back strikes. One more, and she's got a turkey on her hands, all in the 10th frame.
This, of course, is her last attempt before game 2 ends, with it already looking like a win by Kellenberg.
And for the turkey, once again, the turkey avoided by just one pin left standing. And just like that, that will do it for St. Mary's second game on lane A. A defeat in favor of Kellenberg. Kellenberg takes game 2 on lane A, 506 to 412 over the St. Mary's Gales, giving them officially a 3-0 game lead. Now, looking at lane B, still a few bulls left, still up in the air as Zoe Padmore with the strike. There's a slim chance, but still a chance for the Gales to take this game. As a solid bull for Kellenberg.
Of course, Ruth Makako, the senior, she had a very good last stretch, you could say. Getting a double bagger, as some say, or a 2-bagger, which just means she got 2 strikes in a row. While she couldn't get the turkey, being 3 strikes in a row, you could see how she's a very well exceptional player, and she's a high key asset of the St. Mary's team.
Padmore with the last bit of hope for the St. Mary's team in this lane. Leaves 2 pins left, and that will do it for the St. Mary's Gales bowling on lane 2, as well as the Firebirds. They take a close 358 to 324 win to take a 4-0 lead over the St. Mary's Gales.
That game on lane B was probably a closer matchup of what they wanted, at least on the Kellenberg side. But I bet they're just happy that they were able to pull away, and while not securing the victory yet, at least clinching it.
Now, as we look over here in St. John the Baptist versus St. Anthony's, this St. John's team holding on, still very close. It is currently 231 to 258 on lane B. Meanwhile, on lane A, also similar story, not too far apart. However, this one goes St. John's favor, 240 to 207. They lead, hoping to keep their championship hopes alive.
And this is basically the opposite of what we saw in the first game, where it was just the reverse of what happened, where St. Anthony's was up by around 20 and St. John's was the one not. Now it looks like St. John the Baptist on lane A have a high chance of securing this game 2 victory.
Now the score on lane B is now 252 to 265. Extremely close. These next 2 frames, the 8 and 9, could dictate who wins lane B.
As you can see, at least on the St. John the Baptist side, they're keeping it close. They're only down by 13, and they're getting a few strikes and a few spares. And now they're trying their best to keep it as close as possible because they want to win. While on the St. Anthony side, they are just playing phenomenal still. But it seems that, I guess, that hot streak from the first game is fading.
St. John the Baptist with a wonderful rebound after the crushing defeats on both lanes, as getting ready to bowl for St. John the Baptist will be Maggie Batcher. 1 pin to go, 2 pins to go, pardon me, from the spare. And this bowl will be wide left a gutter ball, and she will finish that set with an 8, down 286 to 260.
A play like that hurts, you know, with your ball, with the bowling ball going far left when it was supposed to go at least far right. And I hope that didn't diminish your confidence because this team needs it. While they're down by 27 right now, they can still come back and play very well.
Now up for the Cougars will be Jillian Bancroft and a 9. The 7 pin tilting back and forth, stays standing, and her next bowl will be for spare.
I never really seen something like that, Kellen. The pin looked like it was trying to fall, but it just did not. And now Jillian Bancroft going for her next attempt to get the spare.
And she has the right spin, doesn't have enough. It will not have enough, and that will be a 9 for that frame. Now, one thing we've been seeing here, Justin, is St. John the Baptist have been getting to 8 pins knocked down their first throw, 9 pins,
yep.
But they're not finishing the job. How do you think they can change that to hopefully win each lane?
I feel like, at least for the B lane, to change the mentality. You know, they're getting very frustrated in a way after a, I guess, failed attempt. While they only every time consecutively leave a few pins open, that's still, you still need to get the best that you can get. So I think it's just the confidence. They need to be more confident in what they're doing because they have the skill. They're very skilled, but they need to know that they are very skilled.
Well said, Justin. Now it's currently a 15-point lead on lane B. And as we look over to lane A, St. Anthony's has 238, St. John the Baptist 280. So it appears with about 2 to 3 frames left for St. Anthony's and St. John the Baptist that if St. John the Baptist keeps this up, they will win their first lane of the night.
St. John the Baptist on lane A are just playing phenomenal. They just keep extending the lead over St. Anthony's. Now they're up by 48 when game 1. They weren't seeing this production that they're seeing right now. It was actually St. Anthony's, both sides.
And that will be a successful spare for St. Anthony's. They are pulling ahead here in lane B. As ready to bowl for St. John the Baptist, we have Valentina Vera. And 2 pins left standing. An 8 for that frame. Back-to-back 8s for Vera.
I love seeing the, I guess, team relationship. You saw Valentina Vera after the 2 attempts got a high five from her teammate. That just shows the relationship with the team and how they really are family. And that's what you want out of a team. You want them to know that they are family. You know, spending time after school practicing, going against each other, competing against each other. And that's just very good to see from a team, knowing that they're a family.
Yeah, well said, Justin. Now, as we've been seeing both sides, it doesn't matter who's winning and who's losing. All of the teammates are still giggling, laughing with each other. Even if they're losing, they still know they can come back and it's nothing to be stressed about.
Yeah. I just hope that both teams, in the end, whatever the outcome is, they're just happy that they tried their best and they went their hardest. Because that's all you want. You want to try your hardest. You can't be expecting to win every time. Of course, sometimes you will lose. But knowing that you tried as best as you could, that's the best thing.
That is a good note, Justin. Now, as we look over at lane A, St. John the Baptist lead is shrinking a little bit. They currently lead 307 to 269 with 2 frames left to go. So if they keep up their current pace, it will be a win for St. John the Baptist, keeping them in competition with the Friars.
Both lanes for St. John the Baptist and St. Anthony's are still on lane 2. And both lanes on the right side, being Kellenberg and the Gales, they're coming on their second round of the third game. So while the left side, they're taking longer to finish, it's been very entertaining.
As we will see the bull for St. John the Baptist, it is knocked down by Jillian Bancroft.
Of course, you see the coach of St. John the Baptist, Lauren Haynes, giving her players tips, and that's what you want. You want your coach to be able to give you tips, as many tips as you can.
Now, with that said, it is most likely going to be a win for St. Anthony's on the B lane, which means whoever wins this A lane is crucial. St. John the Baptist, the Cougars, they need to win this to stay in competition with the Friars. The Friars, if they win this, they almost finish off the game and ice it out. All they would need is 1 more point.
This A-Line is taking a surprising turn of events. You know, in the first game, St. Anthony's were up by 20, 30, sometimes with 40. But now it's like the tables have turned with the St. John the Baptist Cougars now are the ones up. Now they're the ones up by a large margin, being 40, 50. And who knows, by the end of this game, they could be up by a lot more.
Yeah. As we were speaking, Justin, Victoria Antoine left 3 pins standing, as I believe she will get ready for her second bowl.
Victoria Antoine, a senior again from Central Islip. She's a very good, well-rounded player. She's playing exceptional right now, getting multiple spares and even a strike.
Now with that strike, that cuts the St. Anthony's lead down to 15. As we take a look at the scores, some notable players from Jillian Bancroft of St. John the Baptist, 113 with her 10th frame still left to go. And over on the St. Anthony side, Ava Higby with 118, also with 1 frame left to go. As we will see, and the lucky roll will get a strike for the Friars.
What a great strike from the fly. She's a very exceptional player with her approach being very well thought out.
With that strike, it helps, almost like an insurance strike, give St. Anthony's a comfortable lead once again, as on the St. John the Baptist side, Valentina Vera got a 6 following her strike. And that's back-to-back strikes for Hannon of the Friars, the junior from Deer Park, 1 strike away from a turkey.
Back-to-back strikes from Melissa Hanna. She's playing exceptional to end this. She has right now a double bagger. She's able to get a turkey if she makes this next attempt.
Hannon hoping for 1 more strike for 3 in a row. The turkey. Here's the roll. Good spin and unlucky draw for her. Only a few pins knocked down.
Melissa Hannon, to end off her second game, started playing exceptional towards the end in the last round, getting 2 back-to-back strikes, that being her third. And you can see throughout the other round, she's had multiple spares.
As we look over at the A lane, it is a commanding lead for St. John the Baptist. They've bounced back well following their Game 1 defeat. They currently lead 351 to 309, as currently bowling for St. Anthony's, their second bowler on their last frame is Gianna D'Agostino.
St. John the Baptist playing exceptional still, with each one of their players having more than 100 points on the board, and is a commanding reason on why the A lane is up against St. Anthony's.
And D'Agostino, a solid bowl, leaves just 1 pin up, 9 knocked down, as St. Anthony's tries to climb back.
St. Anthony's trying their hardest, but we saw this in the beginning of the second game, that St. John the Baptist is starting to keep coming, and they still haven't slowed down.
Well said, Justin. Now as we take a quick peek over at the B lane, St. John the Baptist not quite out yet. Need 3 strikes and a lucky draw from St. Anthony's to take the win on the B lane. As we will see the bowl from Jillian Bancroft, and some good spin on it, and 1 pin left. And I'm afraid that might do it for the B lane of St. John the Baptist here in Game 2. St. Anthony's 371, St. John the Baptist 348, as the last 2 bowlers, which are Tessa Mullen and Jillian Bancroft, finish off their last frame.
Again, Jillian Bancroft, she's playing exceptional right now, leading the St. John the Baptist Cougars to a close matchup. While they may be down, it's still pretty close, with that being her last attempt. And that's the end of the second game for the St. John the Baptist Cougars.
Yep. That will give St. Anthony's a 3-0 game point lead, as we take a quick peek over at Lane A, 366, 347. St. John the Baptist prepares to put this game out of reach, as currently bowling for St. Anthony's is Victoria Antoine. She runs to the line. The roll leaves 3 standing, 7 knocked down. And I believe with that, that will give St. John the Baptist the win in Lane A, their first of the day, to make it 1-3 in favor of St. Anthony's. And as I was speaking, St. Anthony's officially won Lane B, 391 to 348. Antoine prepares for her second bowl.
Her last attempt for the end of the second game.
Here's the bowl. Needs 3 knocked down to stay alive, and she will get it! 3 pins knocked down for the spare. And St. Anthony's still hanging in there. 1 bowl left from Antoine to go, as they currently are only down 2. Hoping for a good bowl here to potentially have the comeback win over the Cougars, as 1 pin is left standing from Mia Santiago, the senior from Lindenhurst. Antoine with a strike could put St. Anthony's in the lead.
Helen, I believe that was a spare.
A spare, pardon me. And only a few pins knocked down for Antoine, and I believe that will do it for the Friars in Game 2, pardon me. Lane A will go the Cougars' way. Not officially done, however, the Cougars will still take the win. As we look at the score, one bowl left. St. Anthony's will finish with 369. St. John the Baptist currently with 376. One bowl still left to go. However, it is out of reach. The Cougars now make it 1-3. St. Anthony's. And with that final bowl, game twos have finished. St. Anthony's leads the game points 3-1. However, Lane A, the first one to go the Cougars' way, is 385 to 369. Now, with game two over, we're going to Kellenberg St. Mary's. Kellenberg, with a win of one game, officially put it out of reach. They need to win one more lane, John, and they punch their ticket to the championship on Thursday.
Of course, St. Mary's, they're still keeping it decently tight, only down by around 30 points. And that could change. Maybe, who knows, Ruth Baccato, the senior from Elmont, may be able to light up a fire and go strike for strike for strike. While that's not realistic, you never know. Kellenberg is still playing phenomenal with multiple strikes.
Kellenberg currently leads Lane A 225 to 193. And on Lane B, Kellenberg has 183, St. Mary's 168. So if Kellenberg holds on to just one of those lanes, they take home the victory and will play again tomorrow as Chloe Horseman will knock down a strike, helping to push Kellenberg's lead even further along.
That's what you call a four-bagger. That's her fourth strike in a row. What an exceptional performance from Chloe Horseman.
Now here's the bowl for Kellenberg. And the 7th pin left standing, that was Carrie Callahan.
Kellenberg, at least on the A lane, are starting to pull away, up by 64. The team as a whole playing very well.
Now, as we look at Kellenberg's scoring, senior Chloe Horseman has 4 strikes in a row currently. A miraculous feat that seemingly is pushing Kellenberg closer and closer to victory and a chance to play on Thursday. Up to bowl is Alexandra Pilock, the senior from Plain Edge. Here's the bowl. And 3 knocked down, 7 knocked down, 3 standing for Alexandra Pilock.
While Pilock, she's not playing as well as she did in the first 2 games, she's still playing exceptional. And that just shows you how good these Kellenberg players really are. And that's not just from the seniors, that's from the juniors and the freshmen as well.
Now, as we await the next bowl from Lane A, we take a quick look at Lane B. And the bowl is leaving 1 pin up once again, Justin, as Kellenberg has a lead of 222 to 175 over St. Mary's.
The Kellenberg team are getting many taps, and they're captivating on it. Taps being, they only leave 1 pin going on their 2nd attempt.
Now coming up to bowl again is Chloe Horseman, who in our conversation with Kellenberg coach Allison Frizina, she was a key player, and currently she has 4 strikes in a row hoping to keep that streak going. Here's a goal from Horseman. And the streak will end there. 1 pin left standing, and her streak of 4 strikes in a row is cut there.
Chloe Horseman's streak of 4. That's the longest streak that we've seen all day from each of the teams so far.
And now we await the next bowl for Kellenberg's Chloe Horseman. And she will finish off with the last pin for the spare. Chloe Horseman keeps increasing her total. That leaves her with a total of 148 on game 3. As the bowl from St. Mary's Ruth Mikako leaves 4 stragglers.
Chloe Horseman, her accuracy on all of her bowls, it's like the ball doesn't move from side to side. It's like it goes perfectly straight, like what we just saw for her spare.
Now ready to send her second roll is Ruth Mikako, the senior from Elmont, for the St. Mary's Gales. And she'll knock down the straggling pins. That will be a spare for Mikako. As next up for Kellenberg is Alexandra Pilock. Pilock's bowl. And 1 pin narrowly knocked down, but it will not happen. 9 pins knocked down, 1 left standing.
Alexandra Pilock, she's having not her best game again, but her teammates are backing her up, letting her know that, hey, we'll play good as well. Don't worry, not all the pressure's on you. And, you know, she's really playing well.
Now Pilock's second bowl will knock down the leftover pin for another spare.
You can see her team cheering her on with Chloe Horseman coming off of 4 strikes in a row with 3 other spares, having a successful round each and every round so far in the 3rd game.
With a quick peek over to lane B, Kellenberg leads 298 to 224. Meanwhile, over here on lane A, it is currently Kellenberg 345, St. Mary's 263.
Chloe Horseman getting ready for her 2nd attempt in the 7th round, hoping to go for a spare.
Now, as we're on frame 8, with every pin knocked down, 2 knocked down there for a total of 9 on the frame for Chloe Horseman. But with every pin knocked down, Justin, and the huge lead that they have over St. Mary's, Kellenberg is inching closer and closer to the championship.
You're exactly right, Kellen. It seems like Kellenberg, from the jump, clinched it. While St. Mary's, the Gales, they've been playing very well. That's not enough for this experienced Kellenberg team, with having only 1 freshman and no sophomores. Kellenberg, they're playing exceptional.
Kellenberg, they came out of the gun firing. They were ready from the start, and they haven't taken their foot off the pedal, taking a commanding lead and being just 1 lane win away from playing on Thursday.
Yeah, and we're approaching to the final few rounds of the third game for the Gales versus the Firebirds, where it's been a blowout so far.
Now, looking over at lane B, the bull from Pattonmore will get her a spare. Next up, Alexandra Pelock, ready for her bowl. Handful of pins knocked down, handful of pins left for Pelock. Now at the 9th frame, both these teams preparing to enter the 10th and final frame. It looks like, at least in lane A, that Kellenberg will be winning that lane, advancing to 5-0 on the day, and clinching them a spot in the championship tomorrow, Thursday, February 5th.
You know, Kellen, both lanes have been playing exceptional. They've just been confident. And every time something happened, good or bad, the players' other teammates were always there cheering her up.
Well said, Justin. Now, 2 bowlers and for Kellenberg and 1 left for St. Mary's here in the 9th frame on lane A as Chloe Horseman prepares to keep her good day going. And she'll knock 9 out of 10 down. 1 left to go.
Chloe Horseman playing a very dominant third game. Again, with 4 strikes, all of them being in a row. And complementing that with 3 other spares.
Now we've seen wonderful performances from both of the St. Mary's bowlers here today. Unfortunately, I do not believe that will be enough for the win, as Kellenberg has a huge lead in both lanes.
Of course, I do believe that both teams are playing exceptional. But this Kellenberg team, man, they've been playing so well. Both with spares, strikes, or even if they leave 1 or 2 pins left.
And that would be a strike from Pattonmore. Sorry to interrupt you, Justin, but a strike from Pattonmore will help finish out the 9th frame with 1 bowler left this frame, and that will be Carrie Callahan.
You're all right, Kellen. Ruth Makako having 3 strikes, complementing that with a handful of spares as well. While the Kellenberg lead is still 110 points.
And with that pin right there, that spare will finish out the 9th frame and send us to the 10th and final frame, as Kellenberg is 1 frame away from winning the championship. I mean, not winning the championship, pardon me, advancing to the championship as they lead 424 to 344. Next up for the Kellenberg Firebirds, this 10th and final frame is Alexandra Pelock, 442-344. Kellenberg leads this 10th frame of Game 3 here on Lane 1.
The Kellenberg versus St. Mary's game, they're coming to a close. with the St. Anthony's, with the St. Anthony lanes versus the St. Cougars, St. John the Baptist Cougars, correction. They are just starting.
Waiting for her second bowl of the 10th frame. Alexandra Pelock, the senior from Plain Edge. Now, this whole lane A has performed extremely well, I would say so, Justin. Alexandra Pelock, Catherine, no, pardon me, not Catherine, Chloe Horseman and Harry Callahan have each put up wonderful performances that have helped power Kellenberg to a commanding win.
Both Kellenberg and St. Anthony's have been exceptional. But, at least for the St. Anthony's side, St. John the Baptist is still giving up a fight with Lane A winning their round. Kellenberg versus St. Mary's, them seeming like the dominant force every round.
Now, as we take a quick peek over to the score of Lane B, Lane B is currently in favor of the Kellenberg Firebirds. They lead 379 to 302. Taking a look at that. 114 points so far for Firebird Sophia Yu, the only freshman on this team from Hicksville.
While she's the only freshman, she's very good. She plays her role, and she's a big contributor to this team.
Now at lane A, currently bowling for the Firebirds is Chloe Horseman for her final frame of the day. So, with a quick check over to the scores of St. Anthony's versus St. John the Baptist in lane B. St. Anthony's is trailing 71 to 62. And on lane A, St. Anthony's has 55 and St. John the Baptist has 45. So a split of the lanes currently, as for her last bowl of the day, is Chloe Horseman. And she will finish her day off with an 8. A wonderful performance from Horseman. She finishes game 3 with a whopping 210 points.
So Chloe Horseman, this third game for her has been exceptional. She had 6 strikes going back to the St. John the Baptist and St. Anthony's side.
Now with the finishing of lane B going Kellenberg's way, the Firebirds clinch a spot in tomorrow's championship game. They will play the winner of St. John the Baptist versus St. Anthony's.
On the B lane, Victoria Antwine just finished off her second round with a spare, going into the third round now.
As the ball on lane A, almost a strike for the Cougars. However, on lane B, it will be a strike for the Friars. That strike was from Friars Junior, Melissa Hannon.
Friars was pretty exceptional. We saw this in the first game. They dwindled down a little bit during the second game, but now they're showing up again and just trying to fight.
Now with a quick look over at the previous matchups between these two teams, the St. John the Baptist Cougars and the St. Anthony's Friars. St. John the Baptist took both games this season. However, both of them were close. Them being won 5-4 and 6-3. However, with the score currently being 3-1, St. John the Baptist is hoping to win both lanes to keep their championship hopes alive.
Jillian Bancroft got a gutter ball for her first attempt. Hoping for a spare on this next, but she would need to get all 10 pins down.
And that will be a spare from the Friars. I believe that was Michelle Florisha. Pardon me, that was Mariana Pikowicz here on lane B.
Mia Santiago, the sophomore from Lindenhurst, going up for her first attempt in the third round of the third game.
Now here's the bull from Mia Santiago. She leaves 4 pins up here on lane B. As for St. Anthony's, their next bowler on lane B will be Victoria Antoine.
Victoria Antoine again. St. Anthony's Friars head coach Quentin Volpe said that Victoria Antoine is an exceptional player. You know, St. Anthony's were able to beat the Kellenberg team, but also Kellenberg at the same time were able to beat St. Anthony's. So if St. Anthony's were to go into the finals, I feel like that would be a very exciting matchup.
St. Anthony's versus Kellenberg, indeed. But this St. John the Baptist team, they've also would be a great matchup versus Kellenberg. They're hoping for revenge after losing 7-2 and 6-3 in the regular season. But if you look at Kellenberg's record, their one loss was to St. Anthony's. So that would be a wonderful rematch of a final.
You're absolutely right, Kellen. I can see both teams having exciting matchups against the team that's already clinched themselves in the championship, Kellenberg.
As you were speaking, Melissa Hannon, with a wonderful spin, is able to racketeer a strike.
You're absolutely right. On lane B now, you have St. Anthony's up by 23 points. And they're also up on the A lane, 91-87.
Both of these games, you can't determine who's going to win from this fourth frame. With how close it is, it will be determined from the 9th frame. Now, with a quick check of the score, here on lane B, St. Anthony leads 154-120. Meanwhile, on lane A, St. John the Baptist has a solid lead of 105-94. And a strike will be heard here on lane B. Victoria Antoine, the senior, will find a strike and give St. Anthony's a 44-point lead. Pardon me, that is now a 43-point lead.
That attempt was exceptional. Quentin Volpe mentioned how he was extremely confident on Victoria Antoine's improvement over not just the last few years, but also throughout the season.
Yeah, this season has been great for both squads, but as we keep on going further in this game, it looks like Victoria Antoine, a player that's going to state, has been a key contributor, as Coach Quentin Volpe of the Friars said in our pregame conversation. As The bull from the Cougars will not go their way. One pin left standing for Valentina Vera. And on lane A, we will have a spare in favor of the Friars.
Friars trying their best to keep themselves in this game, at least on lane A. They're down by 8 points. On lane B, on the other hand, they're up by 28 points, with the score being 164 to 136.
Well said, Justin. Right now, it seems to be a tale of two lanes. Each of them similar in the competitiveness, however, different in the results, as St. Anthony's, with 4 strikes in a row, have been pushing their lead even further here on lane B, as they lead 194 to 138.
With the 2 players on the St. Anthony's roster that are going to states on the same lane, you could see a change, at least in this lane, with them being up by around 60 points. I believe 54 points right now.
Now, preparing to bowl for the Cougars is Jillian Bancroft. The bowl from Bancroft. Right down the middle for the strike. Jillian Bancroft. Her second strike of game 3.
Jillian Bancroft, she seems like the X factor in St. John the Baptist and the Cougars. She's playing exceptional. Well, I do think that when she doesn't perform as well, it really gets to her, and you can see by her frustration. But when she's confident, she's arguably one of the best players in the whole league.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Justin. As with a quick look over to the scoreboard on lane B, there has been a turkey scored in favor of the Friars. With these several strikes that they've had in the recent frames, they've taken a commanding 212 to 158 lead. Now with the score check over on lane A, the Friars have 123, the Cougars 120.
The Friars on the A lane, they were able to come back. Now the score is just updated. They're down by 7. But you saw, at least during the second game on the A lane, they were down a few times. Now it's on the B lane. The Friars leading by a lot, almost 60.
And we will see a strike, a spare for the Cougars as they try to crawl back here on lane B. Now with a look over on lane A, the Cougars have retaken the lead. It's 140 to 137. This game, a back and forth. That lane might determine who ends up moving on to the championship against Kellenberg.
I feel like on the A lane, it's a back and forth matchup between both teams. You know, I saw many lead changes in the A lane, but the B lane, it's just been one constant battle. Kind of like the leading strand in DNA, with St. John the Baptist being the lagging strand, or the Owazaki Dragons.
Now, the streak of 3 strikes in a row is ended for Melissa Hannon as she gets an 8 on her last bowl. As Hannon will come up for her second bowl of the 6th frame. With a quick look over at lane A, it's all knotted up at 147 between the Cougars and Friars. As Hannon for the spare, wide left, will not be able to finish the spare. And the Cougars trail by, I believe, 81. So it's seeming to go out of hand for the Cougars here on lane B. Justin, what do you think?
Well, I think at least on lane A, the Cougars have found a way to keep themselves in this game. But on lane B, you just see an absolute dismantle from both Victoria Antwine and of course, going to States. Absolute dismantle. 3 spares and a strike, with St. John the Baptist struggling to keep up.
St. Anthony is hoping to take both lanes for the win, as if they win both lanes, they will go and take on Kellenberg tomorrow. If they don't, it will come down to the tiebreakers.
Again, St. Anthony's managed to take the lead on lane A. I believe it's their second lead of this game so far.
They may have taken the lead, but there's still 1 bowler left for the Cougars.
You're absolutely right, Kellen.
And the bowl will, every pin knocked down for the spare. That bowl coming from Amanda Kubelka, the junior from Deer Park.
That spare made it a tie game. St. Anthony's to get a tie game. They had to get 2 strikes in a row, with St. John the Baptist still keeping up. Now they're up by 10 points.
Meanwhile, here on lane B, it is a 58-point lead in favor of the Friars. Eight knocked down by Victoria Antoine. And with every bowl from Antoine, this St. Anthony lead is getting bigger and bigger. Out of all of the people on the St. Anthony's team, Victoria Antoine is one I trust the most to help push the Friars to victory.
But Victoria Antoine isn't even the player with the most points right now. But she's just playing exceptional, with her teammates and herself backing not just her up, but each other. And that's the good thing about this St. Anthony's team.
And a narrow miss from Victoria Antoine will send us to the 7th frame here on lane B. Now, looking at the score of lane A, currently the Friars are trailing the Cougars 190 to 196. Pardon me, the score has just changed with a strike for the Friars. And that strike coming from, I believe, Amy Finn, the junior out of East Setauket. Now, Justin, this has been a back and forth between both the Cougars and the Friars. How do you think one of these teams will pull ahead?
Just being confident in themselves and playing to the best of their abilities. We've seen this from not just St. Anthony's, but by every single team here. When they play to the best of their abilities and they're confident and they know that they can do what they can do, each player is very scary of how good they actually are.
Now, following another strike for the Friars, it is currently a 226 to 190 lead And the Cougars got to get back on track quick, or else this game might get out of hand as they'll answer back with a strike of their own. Here on lane B, the bull from Jillian Bancroft will leave 3 pins up.
At least,
Oh, excuse me, left 5 pins up, only knocking down half of the pins.
at least for lane B, St. Anthony's Melissa Hannon, the junior from Deer Park. She's really been playing exceptional this game with 3 back-to-back-to-back strikes earlier and complementing that with one singular spare. But so far, she hasn't been able to complete the spare the last 2 rounds.
Now the second bull from Bancroft will leave at least 1 pin up. And it will only be 1 pin left, a 9 for Bancroft. Leaves her at 99 through 7. Currently an 86-point lead for the Friars here on lane B. This game, which was once close, is now considerably tilting St. Anthony's way. As Mia Santiago will answer back with a strike.
St. John the Baptist, the Cougars, they're trying to do everything in their power to stay in this game, but it's just the 2 seniors and the junior on the St. Anthony side that just continue to pull away.
And Victoria Antoine, 9 knocked down, 1 pin left. That pin will be the 6th pin.
Victoria Antoine, she's been playing exceptional with 3 spares and a strike, trying to look for her 4th spares.
Now with a check of the score of lane A, the Friars have 253, the Cougars 229. St. Anthony's pulling away with a win of both lane A and B. They clinch their spot in the championship.
On lane B, St. Anthony's is leading as well, 318 to 243, with both teams playing exceptional.
Now preparing for their next bowl are both teams. However, next up for St. John the Baptist will be Amanda Kubelka, and she will knock down 8 with her first bowl of the set. The frame, pardon me. And the answer back from Tessa Mullen will be a gutter ball. So the last bowl from this frame 7 will be from Amanda Kubelka. Kubelka, only 2 pins to knock down, and she only knocks down 1. Amanda Kubelka with a 9 on the frame, and St. Anthony's lead is 277 to 247.
While you were speaking, Kellen, Melissa Hannon, the junior, wasn't able to get that spare, but was able to knock down 9 pins on her first attempt.
Now, preparing for the bowl for the Friars will be Mariana Pikowitz, and she'll knock 8 down, 2 more to go. Now ready for the 8th frame on lane A. Here comes the bull we will have one pin left for the Friars. Now this back and forth, Justin, is seemingly tilting St. Anthony's way. How does St. John the Baptist potentially bounce back to take a win?
I guess just stay confident, cheer each other up, feed off each other's energy, and have that fuel your play. Fuel your play. Sorry.
Now looking over at lane A. Bowling for St. John the Baptist is Samantha Siebert. Her bowl will take all 10 down. A strike for Siebert. Helps to thrust St. John the Baptist back into a competing score. Here's the bowl for the Friars, and 2 knocked down from the split. 2 out of 4, so that will leave a frame worth 8 points.
On both lanes, it seems like St. Anthony's is starting to pull away. This would clinch their spot into the championship, allowing only 1 win by St. John the Baptist.
On lane B, Victoria Antoine, 1 pin to knock down for the spare. Just a little too left. Only 9 knocked down as the Friars lead lane B 347 to 286. Lane A entering the last frames of frame 8. Amanda Kubelka, the junior from Deer Park. 1 pin to go. Pardon me, 3 to go. And 1 pin bounces into another. 1 still left standing, unfortunately, for St. John the Baptist. A 9 for that frame.
Currently going back to the B lanes. St. Anthony's is up by almost, I would say, 70.
73-point lead for the Friars in frame 9. As we will see 9 knocked down for St. Anthony's as their lead continues to grow. And the bull there from Margaret Batcher knocks down all 10 pins for the strike.
Margaret Batcher, she's not playing too bad in the 3rd game. She's a big reason on why that they're keeping it close with a strike that was important.
The bowl for St. John the Baptist from Samantha Siebert. And almost gets 1 pin to bounce into another, but 9 knocked down on her first bowl of frame 9. St. John the Baptist hoping for the chance to win. 313. 313. We're all knotted up right now. We're tied here on lane A in frame 9.
Samantha Siebert, you're gonna want her to hit that 1 pin and hope that St. Anthony's completely misses and get the gutter ball for any chance to stay alive.
Any chance to hold on to the lead, at least for the 9th frame. There's the pin knocked down for St. John the Baptist. With lane B out of reach, St. John the Baptist relying here on lane A. Down 5. St. Anthony's one bowler and one bowl left in frame 9. St. John the Baptist, one bowler.
That was Ava Higby. With 3 pins left, she was able to hit 2 of them. To extend St. Anthony's lead to 7.
And 7 out of 10 knocked down. St. John the Baptist inching closer to St. Anthony's. They are currently holding 322 points compared to St. Anthony's 322.
While they're tied right now, St. Anthony's has 1 less attempt.
One less attempt indeed, Justin. This final frame can determine if St. John the Baptist has a chance to compete tomorrow for the championship.
I'm sorry, I meant to say 1 more attempt.
As the last bowl of frame 9 for St. John the Baptist will leave them with 325 points as we enter frame 10.
Going into this frame, the final frame of lane A, I believe.
The bull there from Tessa Mullen will enter us into frame 10. St. Anthony's 340, St. John the Baptist 325. St. John the Baptist need a win to stay alive.
For St. John the Baptist on lane A, this last frame is very crucial because this is the decider on whether or not they'll be able to go to the championship tomorrow.
St. Anthony's holds on to their current leads. They will face Kellenberg tomorrow. The final stretches here on lane B. St. Anthony's holding on to a commanding lead as a gutter ball on lane A. That will leave 2 bowlers left for St. Anthony's. They lead 347 to 345 following the strike from St. John the Baptist. Margaret Batcher.
Margaret Batcher, her strike allowed her to go again, causing her to knock down another 5 pins.
With a 5, that gives, at least for the end of her frame 10, St. John the Baptist now has obtained the lead. It's 355 to 347, pardon me. Yeah, 355, 347. As we prepare the bowl.
Yeah, Batcher gets to go again.
From Batcher, she gets to go again to the strike for the spare. 1 pin left standing, and that will do it for her night. A total of 127 for Batcher. St. John the Baptist currently holds a 359-353 lead. As on her second bowl for St. Anthony's will be, I believe that will, we will have for St. Anthony's only a handful of bowlers left. Ava Higby, a senior from West Islip, will finish her frame. Currently for St. John the Baptist, Samantha Siebert. And a split, 2 pins left standing. St. John the Baptist currently holds a 375, 357 lead, pardon me, 354 lead. It's now 362, 375. St. Anthony's 1 bowler left. They need a spare to stay alive. If they do not obtain the spare, it will go down to average for each lane and total average for the tiebreaker to see who takes on Kellenberg.
St. Anthony's only has 1 more bowler left, with St. John the Baptist still having the 2nd attempt. Well, now it's only 1 more, but they had another attempt Now St. John the Baptist is back up by 14. With St. Anthony's only having their last attempt.
The spare two stay alive in that lane will fail, and St. John the Baptist will win lane A to make it 4-2. We're just finishing up lane B, currently 376, 363. This lane almost over. Currently 406, 335 on lane B. As that pole will hit no pins. So we wait to finish up. One last bowl for the Cougars. 390, 363 the lead. 3 pins left to knock down for St. John the Baptist, Amanda Kubelka.
Lane A had a mass turn of events twice, with St. Anthony's being up by a pretty decent margin. But St. John the Baptist, they were able to come back and still end their third game on lane A with a win.
Yeah, that lane A win is huge. If they lost both lanes, St. Anthony's would officially clinch their spot in the championship. Unfortunately, however, fortunately, if you're St. John the Baptist, they stay alive with the lane A victory. As lane B, that will finish it up for St. John the Baptist here on lane B. A total of 351 as the last bowl here on the night will be from Victoria Antoine, one of the clutchest players here on the on the game, pardon me, as Antoine revs up for what could be her last shot of the night. And it will be 9 on the 10th frame, and that will be a frame win for the Friars. Now, with that said, that will be the last game of our coverage here today. On lane A in game 3, St. John the Baptist take the win, and on lane B, St. Anthony's takes the win. Thank you for watching us today. Thank you for watching us today, as I'm Kellen Andrews, joined alongside Justin Sordo here on TND Sports, as we just witnessed the semifinals of the NSCHSGAA-Girls Bowling semifinals. We will see you tomorrow for the championship. Thank you for watching. I'm Kellen Andrews, joined alongside Justin Sordo, and we will see you tomorrow.
Good job, guys.